Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make pumpkin cheesecake bars. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I am so excited to be sharing another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe. The first thing you'll want to do is get your oven preheating to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to be making these on my classic, super simple graham cracker crust. This is really easy to make. In a mixing bowl, we're just going to combine 1.5 cups of graham cracker crumbs with 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, and then for a little extra depth of flavor, I like to also use 1 firmly packed tablespoon of light brown sugar. We'll just stir everything together, break up that brown sugar, get everything nicely combined. All right, next we're going to add 7 tablespoons of melted butter. Now this can be either salted or unsalted butter. I typically really only have unsalted on hand. So to just give it a little bit more flavor, I'm gonna add just a pinch of salt in there too. And we're just going to stir everything together until all the crumbs are moistened by that butter. We want the mixture to look a little bit like wet sand. This is actually a little bit easier if you use a fork than a spoon, but I'm committed at this point. Okay, all of our graham cracker crumbs are moistened, so now grab your baking pan. I'm using a 9x9 baking pan, and I have lined mine with parchment paper. This isn't absolutely necessary, but one reason I like to do this is because it's going to help prevent your cheesecake from cracking while it bakes, because the parchment paper will help it to constrict freely while it cools. And also, once we're done baking, we'll just be able to lift the bars out and easily slice them. Let's add these crumbs. And I'm just going to do a nice even layer of crumbs on the bottom of the pan. I don't press it up the side any. All right, now we'll set this aside. You do not need to bake it in advance. We're going to prepare our cheesecake filling. You're going to need 24 ounces of cream cheese. This is typically 3 8-ounce bricks. And I do recommend using the brick style cream cheese. The kind that is sold in a tub is not ideal for making cheesecake, so stick to the bricks. Cream cheese should be softened. Mine's been sitting out for, I've set it out this morning so it had time to come close to room temperature. Now to this we are going to add 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, and then for a little extra fall flavor, I like to use 1/4 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar as well. We're going to use an electric mixer to stir everything together until this mixture is nice and smooth and creamy and lump free. If you end up having lumps in your batter, it may be that your cream cheese wasn't soft enough when you began. Next, we're going to add a 1/2 cup of sour cream. Love sour cream in my cheesecake. It is what gives it that great depth of flavor. Usually, if you ever taste a cheesecake and you're disappointed, it tastes kind of flat, it's because there was no sour cream in it. We're also going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. We'll just stir everything together. All right, next let's talk about our eggs. You are going to need 3 large eggs for today's recipe. Ideally, these should be at room temperature. Now, if you've ever ended up with a cheesecake that was kind of mealy, had a funny kind of texture, it's probably because your eggs were overbeaten. So we want to do everything we can to prevent overbeating our eggs and ending up with a cracked cheesecake or one with a mealy texture. So we're going to crack our eggs in a separate bowl, lightly beat them with a fork, and then we're going to add them one at a time. Now, after each addition, we are going to stir until the egg is just combined. And to be clear on that, it's not just that the eggs are being overbeaten, it's that they're being overbeaten in your batter. So the whole mixture is just getting too much air beaten in there. So we're going to try to prevent that. Here's our second egg. And again, just until it's combined. Keep my mixer on a lower speed for this. I'm not saying don't mix it in. You want to make sure that you have a nice uniform batter. You just don't want to overdo it. That's where a lot of people go wrong. Here's our final egg. Mix this one in as well. So once that last egg is beaten in, now I like to switch over to a spatula or a spoon, and I'm going to scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl, make sure everything's nice and uniform, make sure there are no lumps in here. I've made today's recipe with an electric hand mixer. It's a lot harder to overbeat your mixture using a low-powered electric mixer. This recipe can be made with a stand mixer. If you use one of those, you're going to have to be a little bit more careful about overbeating the eggs. All right, so we have our cheesecake batter, but now what about the pumpkin? Well, it's really easy to make the pumpkin part for this. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna measure out 1.5 cups of this cheesecake batter. We're gonna pour it in a separate bowl. It doesn't have to be exact, but I wanna get pretty close. This is not how you officially measure a 1/2 cup. Don't ever measure your flour This way we have a little bit more wiggle room with our cheesecake, but don't measure an ingredient this way. So now that we have approximately 1.5 cups of our cheesecake batter, we're going to add our pumpkin. This is 2/3 cup of pumpkin puree, not pumpkin pie filling. They're sold very close to each other in the store in similar containers, so make sure you grab the right one. We're also going to add 1.5 teaspoons of pumpkin spice. This is my homemade pumpkin pie spice. I will link to that in the recipe. We're going to stir everything together until it's nicely combined. All right, so we have our 2 batters ready now, so it's about time to bake them. Now I want this to look pretty, so the best way to try and make it look pretty is to alternate dollops of batter into the pan. So I'm just gonna start with a nice big scoop of my regular cheesecake batter because we have more of that. And then I'm just going to take a nice heaping spoonful of my pumpkin batter. Try not to spill yours like I just did. And I'm just gonna kind of repeat this pattern. So my cheesecake dollops, my plain cheesecake dollops are a little bit larger than my pumpkin ones. And if you get through the whole pan like I did and you still have batter left over, that's fine. We're just going to kind of patchwork in the remaining batter. Kind of try to put it where there's less of that color. Again, this is not an exact science. Now here's the fun part. We're going to make this look nice and pretty. Just grab yourself a knife, just using a butter knife, and just swirl your knife through the batter. I'm just going back and forth, going up and down. And then I'm gonna turn that and go side to side, just dragging the knife through the different colors. And it's okay if the surface isn't totally smooth because as this bakes, it's going to settle and you'll have a nice smooth surface when you're done. Like a little bit more orange right here. Drop that in. I'll do a little more here too. It looks pretty nice, doesn't it? Now we're gonna take this over to our 325 Fahrenheit preheated oven. It's going to bake in the center rack, and this typically takes about 40 minutes for me for it to be finished baking. Keep in mind, I'm using a metal pan. If you have opted to use a glass or ceramic pan, it is probably going to take you a bit longer to bake yours completely. So a good way to tell that your cheesecake is finished baking is just to give it a little bit of a jiggle. You can see the edges are set, the center jiggles slightly. You still wanna have a little bit of movement there, but you don't want it to be super liquidy. This looks perfect, so now I'm just going to let the cheesecake cool, and I wanna let it cool until it reaches room temperature. Then I'm gonna pop it in the fridge and let it cool for at least 6 hours, preferably overnight, before I slice into it. Now, of course, I do have a batch of these cheesecake squares that I prepared last night, so we can go ahead and cut into them now. See, this parchment paper just makes it so easy to lift them up. It's much easier to cut them this way. And as you can see, no cracks. These are so creamy, so flavorful. It's the perfect balance of pumpkin pie and cheesecake. I think you're going to absolutely love these. If you try this recipe, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. It's pretty good for a pumpkin recipe.